Please welcome Mayor R.T. Rybak.
It is wonderful to be here, folks. I mean, it's really an incredible honor to stand up here and look out at a room filled with people who have given from their daily life, who've chosen to say that I will work and I will do more. It's a really wonderful thing, and I really applaud the magazine for taking the leadership on this. It is one of those brilliant ideas that we should have thought of a long time ago, but I'm glad we didn't wait too long. You are here to honor folks, and I think the most important thing I can do is talk quickly and sit down. But let me, if I could, just spend just a couple very quick minutes putting in context what I hope is going on here today. And I want to start it off by just depressing the hell out of everybody in this entire room for just a moment, okay? Let me say to you something that you've probably heard a little bit. This is a lousy time to be doing business. This is a period of time when the American century may be over, where things are being made in China, where great industries that were the hallmarks of this country are running out, where our fossil fuels are not only creating great challenges for our climate, but may not be here in anywhere nearly the same degree that we have. We have an educational gap. How many people have heard that story? We've all heard that story, and I am here to say to you that I see the world exactly not like that at all. I think it is incredibly important, though, for us to recognize that has become the default position. It's become the way that we talk to each other and about what we've seen in business and communities. And I think one of the things that's important about what we see here today is to reject that thinking very quickly. And we shouldn't reject it out of blind optimism or simply the idea that we feel good about a place or ourselves or others. We should reject it, for starters, out of pure, clean fact. And I say that because I spend a lot of time talking to young people about their future. For these past, I think, 9 years, I've spoken to every 9th grade of Minneapolis schools. I go to every school year after year, every single one. I talk to kids about their future. I ask them to close their eyes and visualize where they're going. And so I need to look in the eyes of the next generation and give them a true vision of where we're going. And I can honestly say to them that they, the most valuable generation we've ever raised, are on the brink of clearly the most exciting period of time we've ever had in business. And stop and think about this. Often I do to them what I should do to you, which is to look up at those lights and say that for many years those lights have been powered by fossil fuels, coal, which in North Minneapolis, those of you from Northeast Bank know that for many years the air quality of Northeast was really soiled by the coal plant from the Northeast coal plant. Well, that's now powered by natural gas. The air is cleaner, but certainly over the next few years, how that energy is powered is going to change dramatically in a phenomenally exciting way. The entire energy sector that underlies what powers us is being reinvented before our very eyes, and we as Americans and we as Minnesotans are in the forefront of wind and geothermal and solar and so many other things that are being invented before our eyes. The power that moves us is changing dramatically, and it creates enormous opportunity. And then you stop and you look at all of the core businesses we have, and that whole fallacy that somehow we don't make things in America is gone. The idea that somehow the car in America is dead has certainly been put to rest. The American auto industry is resurging, but so are so many other businesses. I was in a fantastic meeting just a week ago with people from an alliance of people involved in sewing. They do handmade bags here that are custom made. They make blankets in Faribault, and they walk through the other industries, and suddenly, remarkably, this thing that supposedly we were never going to do again in this country and this city is now creating enormous numbers of jobs right here at home. You look at technology, and you look at the fact that the medical device industry has dominated so well here, but now as that and all sorts of other technologies begin to converge, and the manufactured piece that goes inside of a body and the body healing itself have come together in a new sort of synergy that takes our position here in the middle of this whole new medical future is tremendous. When you look at the idea that the technology that we use to print a piece of paper from our computer will really be the technology to take printing to a whole new level where you can actually print a car from that same technology, that is beginning to make us think in radically different and much more robust kinds of ways. And then you take the other secret weapon of this community. And the secret weapon of this community is one that most people never think about here. and it's the fact that we are far better positioned for a global economy than any other community in the United States of America. Now, why would I say that? Stop and think about that. Why would we say that? Here we are in the middle of the country. We don't have access to any ports, for gosh sakes. We have a very good airport, but it's not a dominant one. You stop and think about that. Why would we be so well positioned? Well, there are a lot of factors in that about great companies that are doing outsized work around the globe, and they always have. But the single greatest factor we have is that right now, every single business around the globe has to find ways to cross cultural barriers. There's not a single business out there that can say, I can look in the mirror and all I have to do is do business with people who look and talk and think like me. Not a single business can depend on just having workers exactly like the CEO. That's where our greatest skill comes in. Because over the past few decades, very quietly, this community, through its generosity, has said that we are actually going to be an example of what the Statue of Liberty is in this new century. We, Minneapolis-St. Paul, are going to welcome people from around the world. And so, through great efforts of social justice, we've welcomed refugees from around the world, Somalia, from Southeast Asia, from Tibet. You can go on, Liberia. And what has happened is as those populations have come here, we have then invested in those young people, and now we are raising a generation of workers who are far better able to compete in the globe than any other community in the country, and I will prove it to you. The Step Up Summer Jobs program that we have had has gone into those schools, and those ninth graders that I've spoken to over these last 9 years, 16,000 kids, 86% kids of color, 50% immigrants, 93% kids in poverty. The Step Up Summer Jobs program has taken 16,000 kids, and they are the workforce of tomorrow. And no other community has come close to touching what we have done in this community. And many of you have been on the forefront of it, and I want to implore you and beg you and encourage you and give you the self-interest to say that you should be part of the Step Up Summer Job program too, because these workers will get us into new arenas. The conversation I had with Ken Powell at General Mills was a lead sponsor originally. We said, look, we're going to have to someday be competing in Africa like we are in India and China, and he laughed and he said, we're sending General Mills people there now. How quickly can we do that? When I look at U.S. Bank, and Richard Davis has been the single lead on this, we recognize that he has led this whole effort as well. And when you stop and think about that, we can compete better across the globe than any other community, and that is a huge, huge asset that we have if we invest in this generation. But there's a final point that makes this community far better able to compete than anywhere else, and it's the reason that we are here today. The reason we're here today is that when we look at business in this community, we look at it differently. And we look at it differently because we say it is in my self-interest to earn a living and to build my company, but it is also in my self-interest to care about more than my self-interest, because this community has always had that value. From the beginning of the settlement of this community, we have always had a philosophy of giving back. And a generation ago, I remember as an early reporter writing those stories where we were very afraid that the civic giving in this community was going to go away because the business community was changing. There's no longer a Pillsbury at Pillsbury. There's no longer a Dayton at Dayton's. You began to remember these stories, remember those from about 20, 30 years ago. People said that our whole civic giving was based on the fact that the founding families of this community had a great value of giving back. Thank God they did. But look at this room. You have disproved that idea. In a generation, we have remade corporate philanthropy. We have remade the civic infrastructure, and we have proven it's not about a few very generous, very wealthy people who run very large companies. It's what we do every day. And so what we're celebrating tonight is the fact that while other communities may be eating each other's lunch in competition, we compete very well, but we recognize that helping that person next to us succeed is about saying that a complete community, one that doesn't leave people behind, one that does reach out to others, is also one that has a complete ability to compete around the world. That's what we're here for. And I want to finish by saying that that is not an accident. That is not an accident. It is exactly what this community has been about. And stop and think about how we were formed. This is, in a natural state, before all these buildings and settlements got here, this is where the woods meet the prairie. It's an amazing point in the geological landscape of our continent. And so before all these buildings were here, what would happen is that people would begin walking through the big woods on the East Coast for miles and miles, day after day, in near darkness. Beautiful, beautiful area, but they'd begin to come, they could barely see in front of their eyes. And they'd walk, and they'd walk, and they'd walk, and they'd walk, and then they'd come to the only natural waterfall in the Mississippi River, right here, where the woods meet the prairie. And as they came out of the woods and they saw that beautiful waterfall, the skies would open up. And as they looked out on the prairie, they recognized that this is where vision begins. That's not a metaphor, it's a reality for how we were settled. And entrepreneurs on the riverfront started mills that became General Mills in Pillsbury, and they gave back into the community, and that's what we are all about. There is something in the water in the land of 10,000 lakes. And that something in the water is what you do every day, the reason you're here today. And what I ask you to do is to not only keep doing that, but to recognize that if it was true that a generation ago, 5 very wealthy people who ran companies sat in a small room and talked about giving, now we are bigger and larger, and we need that to continue to grow. Continue to spread the ethic of who we are, continue to be exactly what Minnesotans are, and that's why not only will be a very good community, but a successful one as well. Thank you so much for all the work, and I look forward to all the winners doing well tonight. Have a good night.
Thank you.